And welcome to the George Washington University and to what I know is going to be a tremendous conversation, a very important one, around the issues and the challenges associated with 2017 World Press Freedom Day. I'm Frank Sesno. I am the director of the School of Media and Public Affairs here at the George Washington University, where we are doing research and, I believe, educating the next generation of journalists and communicators and people who will enter the field of public diplomacy through the political communication that we also put our arms around and seek to understand. We come here at a very challenging time, obviously, which makes this conversation so much more relevant. And before I introduce our keynote speaker, I just want to read a couple of paragraphs from CPJ's 2017 attacks on the press, the new face of censorship. Joel Simon wrote the following: "In the days when news was printed on paper, censorship was a crude practice involving government officials with black pens, the seizure of printing presses, and raids on newsrooms. The complexity and centralization of broadcasting also made radio and television vulnerable to censorship, even when the governments didn't exercise direct control of the airwaves. After all, frequencies can be withheld, equipment can be confiscated, media owners can be pressured. New information technologies, the global interconnected internet, ubiquitous social media platforms, smartphones with cameras were supposed to make censorship obsolete. Instead," he writes, "they have just made it more complicated." I've been in global broadcasting and media virtually all my life. I started here in Washington with a place called the Voice of America, and then went to a place called the Associated Press, and then a place called CNN. We're partnering with BBG today to explore how this world has become more complicated since a young guy came to Washington when there were presses and black pens, and censorship was something that you could touch and see and hear in a very direct way. This is a global challenge, as we know, and we'll get into this. And the surprising thing is that we have challenges here at home. Many of the people in this room perhaps were at a dinner Saturday night here in Washington, D.C., White House Correspondents Association dinner, where there was no president and there was no cabinet and there was a banner acknowledging something called the First Amendment. So not even here in this country can we take this for granted in the way that we might once have done. So conversation is just so much more relevant and so much more direct in the challenges it presents to all of us. So I look forward very much to our opening speaker and to our keynoter, who will kick this off, as Acting Undersecretary of State for Public Diplomacy and Public Affairs, Ambassador D. Bruce Wharton provides global strategic leadership of all Department of State public diplomacy and public affairs engagement, and he oversees the bureaus of educational and cultural affairs, international information programs and public affairs, and the Global Engagement Center. How does America reach out to the world? How does America exchange information, ideas, people with the rest of the world? Among his many diplomatic roles, Ambassador Wharton has served as the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary in the Bureau of African Affairs, the U.S. Ambassador to Zimbabwe, the Bureau of African Affairs Deputy Assistant Secretary for Public Diplomacy, and the Deputy Coordinator of the Department of State's Bureau of International Information Programs. We had an opportunity to stand out on our very windy patio here a few moments ago and talk about some of the opportunities and the challenges that we confront. So it's a great pleasure to introduce Ambassador Wharton.
Thank you, Frank, for that very kind introduction, and good morning to all of you. So in 2 days, we're going to commemorate World Press Freedom Day. And this year, as Frank has alluded to, we do so in a time when it feels like the media environment around the globe is deteriorating, not improving. So I'm really grateful to be able to be here with you today to celebrate one of the great American institutions, one that promotes and defends the idea that people, all people, have fundamental rights to speak and to be heard. Freedom of expression and of the press may be a universal value enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but I think it's fair to say that we Americans also see it as a distinctly American value. And it's one that we sometimes take for granted because it is so ingrained in the fabric of our lives. But I think it's important to remember that this is a value that is often denied around the world. Democratic societies are not infallible, but they are accountable, and the exchange of ideas is the foundation for accountable governance. In the United States and in many places around the world, the press fosters active debate, provides investigative reporting, and serves as a forum for differing points of view, including on behalf of those who are marginalized in societies. And it's very important to remember that reporters often do their work at tremendous risk, with little recompense beyond that of a byline. The media is often a target of retaliation by those who feel threatened by transparency. Journalists are often the first to uncover corruption, to report from the front lines of conflict zones, and to highlight missteps by governments. And they're among the first to suffer for it as well. The brave men and women who work at the BBG and its affiliates exemplify brave best practices, often taking great risks to bring news and information to people in media-restrictive environments. And their work here at home is also driven by the ideal that the free flow of information and the belief that an informed world is a safer world. BBG's mission since its founding in 1942 has been to inform, engage, and connect people around the world in support of democracy and freedom. In those 75 years, 14 BBG journalists have paid the ultimate price in the pursuit of truth. Let us remember them and honor their sacrifice. Even today, threats to BBG journalists and to freedom of expression continue. Radio Fardo contributor Rasul Mahmoud was wounded during fighting in Iraq in October of 2016. And Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty contributor Mykola Semina faces a trial in Crimea on separatism charges. So it is important that we're all here together today to stand in defense of press freedom. The State Department strongly believes that journalism is essential to the work that we do in catalyzing good governance and strengthening democracy. One of the many examples of this is our Securing Access to Freedom of Expression, SAFE, S-A-F-E, initiative, which provides state-of-the-art training to journalists on physical and digital security and offers them psychosocial care through centers in Central America, Eastern Europe, East Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia. Between November 2013 and December 2016, SAFE trained almost 1,200 media professionals. President Trump has made clear that the government must be controlled by the people and must exist to serve its citizens. This emphasis echoes the importance that America's founders gave to freedom of speech and freedom of the press. When citizens are at the center of a political system, as they are in ours, an independent and free media is indispensable for sharing information, challenging assumptions, and allowing people to make informed decisions. The Broadcasting Board of Governors understands this, which is why I am so proud to represent Secretary Tillerson as one of the board's 7 governors. Among the guiding principles that Secretary Tillerson relayed to me and my colleagues on his first day on the job were accountability, honesty, and respect. And just as these principles are indispensable for effective diplomacy, they're also vital to winning the trust and respect of the public, as the BBG has long done. So today and on Wednesday, please take a moment to salute the BBG and the values of press freedom that it represents here at home and showcases around the world. I truly wish that I could stay with you and learn and enjoy the conversations during the course of the day, but I'm afraid I've got to leave. I've got to go back to the State Department for a meeting there at 10 o'clock. So thank you so much for inviting me. Frank, thank you for hosting this. John, BBG, thank you guys for the work that you do.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, and good luck with a busy day.